Okay, we're over here on Main Street Commons, and we are kind of laughing because we just had a very long conversation, which to start things off. But we're over here on Main and Broad Street in Bethlehem, and can't miss the Commons. Brewworks is right on the corner. And recently, I've come through Facebook. I've come across a very talented graphic artist, and not only that, but something she said in our conversation also made me realize she's more than just a graphic artist. She's an artist, a true artist in general. And I always let people introduce themselves right off. This way it doesn't sound real formal and stuck up and snobby.
Hi, I'm Jennfer.
Okay, and like right off, I just want to start off with the graphics design.
Okay.
We actually found out about this through a few conversations on Facebook. How long have you been doing the graphic art and the graphics design?
I went to college for graphic design. I graduated from college in 2008 from Kutztown University. And after I graduated, I really didn't get a job in graphic art. I actually got a job in the professional field doing more secretarial work. Right now I work for a printing company, actually.
You can plug them quick if you want.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
So right now I actually work for a printing company. So I wouldn't say I do a lot of graphic art at this point, but I've always been interested in art, and I've certainly always done more creatively inclined things.
Okay. Now, as far as graphic art goes, and even an artist who does everything digitally, like on a touch screen or a Wacom tablet now, versus doing everything, paint, color pencil, whatever. You'll find out I jump around a lot, just the way my brain works. But I know years ago I was teaching myself 3D graphics design, and there's still an ongoing debate and verbal war as far as, okay, well, graphic arts isn't, and computer arts isn't true art, and some people say it's just a different medium, versus, okay, yeah, well, get a paintbrush, get a pencil, that's true art. Doing everything on a computer where you have unlimited brushes, unlimited colors, and everything's in the software is easier to learn. That there's no natural talent, that's not true art, and there's no creativity. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I disagree with that, and let me explain why. First of all, I think that there is definitely a difference between using traditional mediums to create art and using digital mediums. I think they actually require slightly different skill sets. Obviously, people who are a little less hands-on can certainly benefit from using the digital media, but I think that really what you need to be an artist, which is present in both of those, is you need a certain eye for design. You need a real understanding of what makes good design. And really, when we talk about design, what we mean is you need a strong understanding for visuals that convey meaning. Specifically, how a visual can convey the meaning you want it to mean. I can paint color on a canvas, and it might be pretty to you because I used your favorite color.
Right.
But to somebody else, that was the worst shade of blue. So really, what's important about design is to be intelligent about it and to convey the meaning you really wanted somebody to take away from it. We see this all the time in logo design in different companies, how they talk about blue as a professional color, but you'll find that usually they're all using the same shade of blue, because that color blue conveys trust. It conveys trust and integrity in the brand, and that's what they want you to walk away with, even if you don't consciously know that that's actually what you're taking away.
You just taught me something, honestly. I never thought about, it's like, I remember hearing about it on occasion, but I never seriously, you just taught me something as a business owner, because I honestly never thought about how, the different colors can convey. I know they bring out different emotions where, like a fire red, people more likely to passion, anger, things like that. But as far as businesses and, how careful a lot of businesses have to be about choosing the colors for their logos and everything. I never realized that.
And that's what I think makes a good artist, is intelligent design. And you'll also see it on paintings, and you'll see it in photography. It spans all mediums, really. is when you see something and a certain meaning is conveyed over to you. Or, you know, even in photography, you can always see how some shots were framed just right, and you'll see it mirrored in paintings. I actually had a friend of mine walking through Barnes & Noble with me looking at book covers. And I pointed to all the different book covers, and I pointed out to my friend how you'll notice that they'll always display the subject in the photo in a certain way, whether it's illustrated or a literal photograph, or whether it's been through Photoshop 1,000 times. They always display them in a certain way from certain angles. And one of the things I really pointed out was the symmetry of it, actually. How if you were to take a pencil and draw straight down in the vertical or on a side-to-side kind of way, you'll see that the subject of the photo is very balanced. You'll see that if the ballerina has her arm up on this side, then her legs are out on this side. You know? So you'll actually see it in everyday life all over the place, and it's just not something people think about it. But really, anyone who has an eye for that and can understand that and translate it into any type of visual media, I would say that involves artistry.
Okay. Now, again, here's another side, another aspect to it, though, where, like with myself, you know, give myself, you know, we always use ourselves as our best examples. There's actually a difference between being learned creativity and natural creativity. Am I correct? Now, forgive me for asking this question. Hopefully, you do not take offense. With you, has it always been like a naturally? You've always been like had that natural desire for creativity and design, or was it more where you just figured, you know, it was something you wanted to try and you actually got? And I'm not saying one. I'm not cutting down one or the other. You know, what I'm saying it's just. At least in my experience and what I've learned, there's actually, to a point, slight differences between the two. So with yourself, has it been always natural, or has it been more learned, or a combination?
For me, it's always been a natural creativity, but I do think that I'll use this story as an example. When we started at college, a required reading book was actually The Creative Habit.
Okay.
I don't remember the author's name. I'm sorry. But
Internet search?
I did not think it was a very good book. But the point of it was that you can teach creativity. And that's something they wanted all the students to believe or understand. I'm not saying that you can't teach creativity. I think it's a little bit in between. I think you've got to have a creative mind to begin with. You've got to have a mind that is open to seeing possibilities. And you've got to have a mind that wants to problem solve, because really that's what creativity is, I think, in a lot of ways. It's a little bit of problem solving, and it's a little bit of flexibility. It's the willingness to say, well, you know, what must I look like from the other side of the mirror? You know, and how can I envision the world being? You know, those are all problem solving and flexibility of mindset. And you have to have a little bit of that to start. Some of us have more than others, obviously, and then other people require a little bit of training. And I think that's where the learned creativity comes in. It's not that you can teach somebody creativity if they have nothing. It's that you can teach somebody how to access it better, how to get more in the habit. I had an instructor tell me once that creativity was really like a muscle in the brain. And like any other muscle, the more you used it, the easier it would be for you to come up with creative ideas on a regular basis. And I think that that holds true, that if you fall into the routine and you don't make a habit of trying to look at new things and come up with new ideas, you get rusty.
Right.
And it's not that it goes away.
It's almost like you fall into a rut then also.
Exactly. And I've seen in my own life, although I consider myself a very creative person, I've had, you know, slow times where I was really into my routine, I was really into my job and other things that were going on in my life. And then when I sat down with the blank piece of paper, my brain just blanked, and I didn't have anything. So it's definitely something that exists innately, but also should be cultivated intentionally.
It's almost like, from what you said, it's, to put it in more simpler terms, it's almost like you said about a blank piece of paper where you have, you know, the basic form is there. It's up to you to refine it.
Yes.
Essentially, that's what where to a point the learn part of it comes in. It's refining it and constantly refining it and evolving it from that base. Like I think this is actually an old saying where, like a sculptor, you give them the piece of clay. There's the base. There's the base they have to work with. It's up to them to take it in the direction. So, would that be more kind of like simpler terms?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I mean, I guess my point is just that creativity is something you can cultivate and shape and increase, certainly. But I think that you have to have a little bit of it to start out with. I mean, most people do. I mean, most people do have a little bit of creativity, and for most people, it just comes down to, is that something that they want to cultivate and put work into?
Even the greatest scientists have a little bit of creativity, otherwise they won't be able to figure out.
I agree.
Come up with new ideas. It's
absolutely
the mathematics and the logic is part of it, but it's even in sports. So now I actually want to jump into a totally different subject, which I told you would be one of the questions, and we'll end part one here. We'll take a little bit of break and then do part two, just because I want to get back into that. And also, I'm an author. I'd love to leave people on a cliffhanger. Basically, in today's modern, we're constantly evolving into a more and more virtual life that we live now. With the technology, with computers, with the smartphones, with the software, the graphics, things like photography, at least base graphics design, and art, and even to become a digital artist, it's getting easier and easier to learn how to do it. And therefore, like, photography is the best example. Everybody out there with the latest Android or iPhone thinks they're a professional photographer right now. How now, from your all of your experience and as a true artist, how can people truly discern somebody who's like, oh wow, well, I'm a graphics designer and post things in Facebook and social media, and post versus, okay, well, I just started my graphics design business, look at everything I can do, versus a true professional and seasoned professional. It's slowly getting harder to tell the difference between the two. How much of a difference is there anymore between a true professional versus an amateur who thinks that they're a professional, and how can people tell the difference between the two, especially when, like I said, with all the software out there, it's getting easier and easier to, even, for lack of a better term, violate copyright and just copy somebody else's work. How can you tell the difference between the true professional versus the amateur now?
Well, I think I want to start out by saying that, like I said before, earlier in the conversation, that really good design is something that definitely sets apart somebody who has a camera and knows how to click the button versus somebody who knows how to frame a picture and set it up in a way that conveys meaning. And the same can be said for even an art banner. There's a difference between a really great logo that was intelligently put together in a way that makes sense and conveys the real feeling of the brand versus, a piece of clip art. But also too, I understand that, like you said before, with technology, it's a lot easier to cut and paste somebody else's work. And really, most people are taught, from a school standpoint, it's really important, and I've heard them say it to us in school many times, that if you're going to post your artwork online, there should be a mark on it, it almost looks like a watermark.
Right.
Obviously it's not, because we're talking about digital media here, but it almost looks like a watermark.
Digital watermark.
Yes, a digital watermark. And it actually has your name or your logo imprinted against your artwork, and then every time they try to copy that, it's going to appear in their copy. And you'll see it a lot of times on stock photography sites where you have to pay for the content. You'll see it a lot there.
Yeah, because actually, basically, you almost have to really. Now that's one area, from what I've been told by a few people, you really have to learn, because because even when you do that, and even when you embed that copyright or whatever, that people are finding ways that, again, the software is getting more advanced. It's getting easier for people to find ways to erase that. So that's one area where you really have to learn the computer, and you really have to learn the technical side of it. So, but other than that, like I said, it's how, like, going online, and even when you're talking to people, somebody who says that they're a professional versus someone who is an amateur, but, oh, well, I just posted 100 images of my art.
Well,
how can you really tell the difference?
Well, you know what? I don't know that it's necessarily important how long somebody's been doing their craft. I think maybe what's more important is if you are looking at somebody saying, all right, I want to hire you as a graphic designer, or I want to hire you as an illustrator or a photographer, whatever it may be. I think the important part is that, you're going to want to see some of their work. And honestly, if you see their work and you like it, I mean, whether they've been doing it for 10 years or 2 days, it shouldn't really matter, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, as long as you like their work. That would be my biggest suggestion to people would be, if you're going to hire somebody to do some artistic work, definitely see some stuff they've done in the past. Make sure it's what you're looking for and it's the quality you're looking for.
Okay. Now I'm going to end part one, and this is part of the cliffhanger. Part one, and I told you, and a lot of people know, I don't back down from anything. Negative feedback, whatever. If it's intelligent and critique, I don't back down from it. Considering the fact that I don't have a graphics design background, your honest professional opinion of the logo of Valley and Beyond. I'm not saying this for my ego or anything. I just, your honest and professional opinion of the image everybody sees. Your honest and professional opinion of how the idiot moron that designed that, how he did on it.
All right, I have been to the Lehigh Valley Live website a couple of times, mostly because it's one of the first things that...
No, I'm not talking Lehigh Valley Live. I'm talking about my magazine's logo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, forget it. I don't care about the other.
Okay.
What do you think of the image that was designed by that amateur?
The images.
Yeah, the image, like when you go to the homepage and you see with the photo with the frame and what do you think of that? Honestly, how do you think that was well done, or how poorly that was designed?
I think it has a little bit of a retro look. I don't think it's not about right or wrong here. Okay.
That's its opinion.
It's more about, exactly, it's what I said, if you like it, then that's great. I think it's a little retro. It reminds me a little bit of like an album cover or a record cover, which is not a bad feel, but it's different from what I would personally relate to.
Okay.
It's a little a decade ahead of me.
Ouch. Now I feel old.
Sorry.
Okay, so point blank, do you like it or do you hate it? Point blank.
Neither.
Okay.
It's not a love versus hate thing.
Okay.
But it does confer to me something a little retro.
Okay. So in other words, it's in direct contradiction to what the magazine is, essentially. Okay.
I like the photography. The photography was good.
Hey, like I said, I don't back, and actually, I don't back down from anything. So we're going to end part one here. And part two, we're still going to get into the artistic side, just a totally different area. And it's from one single sentence you stated back in our conversation earlier that I'm curious, that has me curious about. So,
okay.
And I'm not telling you until the start of part two.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.